Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Baseball Adjacent. We are here with your National League Championship Series preview between the LA Dodgers and the Milwaukee Brewers. I am your host, Taco Josh. That right there is my co host. It's America's pitching coach, Justin Arth. And we have a real interesting NLCS, one that maybe you would have potentially picked at the beginning of the year, but there's no way you would have said that the Brewers would have home field. I don't know. What's gut reaction? How are we feeling about the NLCS, Justin?
Well, the Dodgers have done it again. They followed their plan that I perfectly laid out for them towards the end of the regular season. How, let's just play bad and get hot and go through the playoffs the way that we are, just getting hot and rolling through wild card, to division, to championship series. So everything's going according to that plan for the evil empire over out west. And then the Milwaukee Brewers, the one seed of the National League, the team that's the best team in baseball record wise. I thought they didn't really have a chance by the Cubs, who felt like a destiny team for me. And they took care of their division rival, and they've advanced to the CS. So good on the Brewers. They've got a good offense. Their pitching's pretty good. They play a good brand of baseball, and they're the scrappy thorn in the sides to a lot of teams, despite being the best team in baseball. And we've got this first series. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, this is I'm real excited to hear all the David versus Goliath analogies here, but you could make the argument here that the Brewers are Goliath. They went 6-0 against the Dodgers in the regular season, which is wild. They had the best record. The Dodgers should have been Goliath, but in a weird way, it feels like they're almost kind of the underdog, but it feels like they're also the overdog. I don't know. I don't know. It's an interesting series to try to break down. I guess, Justin, where do you want to start in all of this?
I think let's start with the Dodgers because the Dodgers have some interesting talking points, and then we can go blow up the Milwaukee Brewers at the end.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's as we're recording this, we should say the rosters have not officially been announced, so we're making some educated guesses as to who's going to be on roster for both teams. As you're watching this, maybe the rosters have come out. I'd like to start with catcher for the Dodgers, Will Smith. He came back last series. He had not he'd been injured since early September. He had that fractured hand. We were like, is he going to come back in the playoffs? Turns out he did against the Phillies. It wasn't awesome. He went 2 for 13, didn't have an extra base hit, but he was there. He figures to continue to get better. But what do you think we're getting out of Will Smith specifically?
That's again tough to say because we talked about it in the ALCS preview. If you want to go back and watch that as well, like coming into a championship series or really in a division series the way Will Smith did, being expected to perform like you should or like on paper you should because of the type of player you are, and not being able to like go to the minor leagues and get rehab assignments and stuff there to get it going. It is very difficult, especially with the getting up to speed with the timing of a 98-mile-an-hour fastball or 104-mile-an-hour fastball for Jacob Mizorowski now in this upcoming series. So it's tough, especially like when you have Ben Rodervet, who's been really good offensively, and he's been a pretty solid defensive catcher too. So, in terms of what you're going to get out of Will Smith, I think every game's just going to be better and better. I think the stats probably won't look good, but it is still Will Smith at the end of the day. So I do feel confident in if the Dodgers need a big hit and he's the one up to play. There might be one big hit that you might get out of him where at the end of the series he's probably batting 182, but that one hit he gets or the two hits he gets might be like a crucial double to get on second for like an Otani to bring him home later, or like a big home run that'll put them up over the Brewers in a clutch moment. So that feels like what you're going to get out of him. But again, you have Ben Rodervet, who's hitting 400 in this last series or 400 total in the playoffs. And he's a pretty good defensive catcher, knows how to call these games for these pitchers, and has been pretty well since coming over from Tampa.
Yeah, let's you mentioned Otani, so we do need to talk about it. He was not very good in the
Yeah.
NLDS against the Phillies. He went 1 for 18 at the plate. He struck out 9 times. And he is obviously he's the best hitter in baseball. You could certainly make the argument, but he did not really show it last series. Now the Dodgers were able to overcome it, but if that continues, that's going to be a worry point, I think, if you're LA.
Yeah, it is. So my biggest question here for the Dodgers outside of the bullpen, because again, we'll probably talk about the bullpen here in a minute. But where are the stars for the Los Angeles Dodgers? Like this is Hollywood, right? Where are the stars? Mookie Betts has been terrific in that last series. Teoscar Hernandez was still pretty good. But like you just said, Shohei Ohtani, 1 for 18, 9 strikeouts. Where are you at, my guy? Pitching even wasn't amazing. I mean, it was good, but in terms of the starting pitchers that rolled, he had the highest ERA of the starting pitchers that started in the DS. So, and it was still 3 ERA. So let's just pump the brakes on that. Like he's fine, but Freddie Freeman, like he wasn't very good either. And then again, Will Smith, they need to get it going. So you are getting a lot of offense production out of the bottom half of the lineup guys. So like Tommy Edman was doing pretty well. I mean, you're getting guys at the bottom half of the lineup like Ben Rodervet and some other dudes. Kike Hernandez and stuff as well, picking things up. But if you're trying to, this is what we talked about with other teams in the wild card series. Like if you're wanting the bottom or needing to rely on the bottom half of your guys, like your bottom half guys, your bench players to be the ones that carry you and your stars aren't able to, that's not a recipe for success when you enter a postseason series, especially the National League Championship Series, when you're facing a good Brewers team on the other side. So the Stars need to pick it up if this team wants to advance. But they have some good starting pitching going out there, and if the starting pitching can shut down guys and keep this bullpen out of the game until Roki Sasaki gets in, that might be the recipe for success. Because in this last series, that's kind of what they were able to do, and the offense did enough to win games to get them out in five, or excuse me, in four games.
Yeah, I mean their best two hitters last series, I think, are Mookie Betts and Teoscar Hernandez. Teoscar hit 3 home runs in the 4 game set.
Yep.
Mookie had himself a good little series. He didn't hit a homer, but he was good. Muncy was good. Kike was good. Edmund was good. Like there's guys there, but I think as you get further and further down, like I'll cite Freddie Freeman was not incredible last series. Now he figures to step up because it feels like he always does in the postseason, but he just by the numbers last series was not very good at the plate. Now he did have that gnarly pick to end that game and close out. That's like a season-changing pick he makes because if that doesn't happen, we don't know where we are right now. But at the plate last series and really this whole playoffs, not great. Same with Ohtani. I mean, he went 1 for 18 last series, but even in the wild card, he wasn't much better. Like cumulatively, he's only hitting 148, including the wild card. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of questions, I think, for the Dodgers. There's a lot in the bullpen. There's a lot in the lineup. You're hoping that Teoscar and Mookie and Kike and Muncy and Edmund just keep on trekking and you can ride that wave. But I don't know that that's as for sure a shot as you would want if you're a Dodger fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to go back to relying on the starting pitching. Like Snell's going to get game one, is what they have announced, at least at the point of recording. And so you're going to get one of your best guys, like Snell and Yamamoto have been their best two. So you're going to get those two rolling here pretty early in the series, potentially. And yeah, I mean, you're going to have to rely on that starting pitching to get things to Roki. And Roki's been lights out in terms of moving to the bullpen and becoming a closer too. So yeah, you just need enough offense to get through, and you need to win the games that your good starting pitchers are pitching. And that's unfortunately, if you're a Dodger fan, a question that I think you could be kind of confident in. But the Brewers on the other side aren't just some slouches; they're not some pushovers.
Yeah, I mean they're the best team in baseball. Let's go down the bullpen route just for a second because we've seen Roki come in and close games. It seems like they've dictated like this is our closer. Blake Trinan made it into a few games, I believe, last series and didn't look awesome. It was shaky at best. It feels like Kershaw is going to get used out of the pen at some point, they've said. it's an odd collection of things going on in the late innings of Dodger games, and I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's better than it could be, but I also don't know that that's like a recipe for success against the Brewers.
Yeah. And my biggest problem with the bullpen is the fact you only really have one guy you can trust. Like Kershaw has not been very good, and obviously this is pretty much the end for Kershaw if they don't advance or if he's not on a roster. So, I mean, Vesia, who's their setup guy in the eighth inning, has not been good. Trinan, who's their setup guy in the seventh inning, has not been good. And you really only trust Roki Sasaki right now in terms of anyone coming out of that bullpen. And again, it's a young 24-year-old Japanese kid in a big spot in the postseason. Again, with him being a superstar Japanese player that came over and has played on that Team Japan with Otani, things like that, you would like to think he's got the minerals already for it. I do think Roki Sasaki has the minerals for it, but still, it's just it's difficult to put that load, especially whenever you do not really have a bullpen at all to say, hey, like you are our hopes and dreams if our starter comes out of the game. Like everything rides on you now. You might have to go 8 and 9. Like that's a
Yeah.
lot to put on a 24-year-old kid, but he's got electric stuff and he's pretty just electric in general. So he's got a shot, and if the Dodgers don't overuse him, he could be pretty electric.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting balance of you got to use them enough to try to win a World Series, but you also don't want to use a 24-year-old so much that you're putting years in the future in jeopardy just from use case late in a season. I don't the Dodgers, right? They're on paper, they're the best roster remaining. I think that's fair to say, but they also, it feels like to me, have a lot of questions where every other team that we've talked about and will talk about with the Brewers here in a second, um, there's maybe one big question. It feels like the Dodgers somehow have questions all over the place. They have questions in the field. It feels like their starting pitching is the most stable part, which is like they have pretty elite level starting pitching on paper. And then the bullpen is another question. And I wonder about their ability to overcome that as a whole. Like if you're not just going to win a series with starting pitching. At some point, somebody's going to have to hit, and it's probably going to have to be more than just Teoscar and Mookie. You're probably
Yeah.
going to need a third or fourth or fifth guy to actually hit, especially with the not so shut down bullpen that they've been running out in the last month or so of the season.
Yeah, and that's the question because, like, who's going to be the one to do that? You have plenty of people on paper that you feel like should, but then one thing we haven't even talked about this Dodgers offense is they are striking out at an alarming rate. Not just Otani, just the team in general. Even the guys that have been performing well have. It's been either you're going 2 for 4 with 2 Ks. It's kind of been how that offense has rolled. So the Milwaukee Brewers can strike people out too. So it's like, okay, you're now playing into the hand of the Milwaukee Brewers. So it's one of those things that like you got to cut down on the Ks, you got to get good at bats rolling, and you got to get one or two of those stars rolling that haven't been. And if you can do that, you've got a shot. But this does feel like a sleeping giant in a way where it's like if they get it going, they might be the best team in baseball. They should be the best team in baseball if they get it going. But they also have not shown anything in the last maybe month that they can. They've just done enough to advance against a fairly good Philadelphia Phillies team, but was coming off a bye. They did enough to beat Cincinnati that probably shouldn't have been in the postseason if the Mets if don't collapse. So it's one of those things. It's like, okay, the Dodgers have done enough, and on paper they're good enough to get it done. They can play around with fire and not get burned, but this is possibly your third series that you're playing with fire here potentially. If you're striking out all the time, Otani goes another 1 for 18 or 2 for 20 or whatever. Like you got at some point you're going to get burned, and this is a team that I think could burn you in the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah, here's the last thing we'll say about the Dodgers, and then we'll move on to Milwaukee. It feels like we've been saying the whole season, since we started this, basically, we've been saying, hey, the Dodgers, on paper, they're the best roster. and we are, including the postseason, like 170-ish games into this, and there is still a lot of questions going on, and you're like, I don't actually know that they are like they were like, they haven't clicked yet, but we've had 6 months and they haven't really clicked. Now, there's been injuries in there, absolutely, but I don't know. I just there's a I'm at the point right now where I don't know that I trust the roster to begin clicking because we've been sitting here watching, waiting for this whole team to gel, and it really hasn't happened at this point. It feels like they're constantly putting out like miniature dumpster fires, trying to just like trek their way through the season, whether it's like they have no starting pitching for 2 months, and then suddenly the bullpen is collapsing, and then suddenly they can't hit for like 3 weeks, and then suddenly the bullpen is collapsing again. It's just like over and over and over, and that doesn't fly as well in the postseason when suddenly you got to win 4 out of 7 games to advance against the best team in baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think will make this postseason series another fun one to watch because if things start turning into small little mini dumpster fires again, I mean, Milwaukee's going to be the one that might elevate the fire. They might throw the match into the fire with how they are playing baseball right now. So, yeah, they've got a lot of questions. And it is weird to say that, like, this team on paper should be the best team in baseball and boat race everybody and they're not. And why are we still on the bandwagon? It's, I guess, because they continue to get it done enough to make us feel like, oh, they're gonna get it at some point, and when they do,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see just from the Dodgers side what that looks like. Let's talk about Milwaukee for a minute. They have, I mean, a significantly stronger bullpen. So we'll start there. We're looking at McGill. You're looking at Uribe. Mizorowski out of the pen pitched way more than I think either of us thought, and especially in high leverage situations more than either of us thought. But he looked electric. I mean, the Brewers bullpen, advantage Brewers when it comes to the bullpen, and I don't think it's
absolutely.
particularly close. I think the Brewers have like 5 guys right now that they feel really good about. We can run these guys out in any situation, and we are getting out of this inning, in pretty much any situation.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of their bullpen, I mean, their back three of what's their back three? Like Uribe, Koenig, and then obviously you get to McGill, who obviously then McGill actually got a game started
Yeah.
when they did the opener and stuff. But again, McGill's still your closer. That's a really good back three, and that's still not to mention Aaron Ashby, that's pitched a lot already in the postseason in 4 games already. Chad Patrick, who's pitched 4 2/3 inning, hasn't give up a run. I mean, you've got Robert Gasser that's been okay, has probably been the worst guy there, but I mean, again, he's still been okay. Jacob Mizorowski, we've seen pitch a lot, 7 innings in 2 games. And Nick Mears even has been okay. So like you've got a lot of guys that you feel confident in that you could just throw out there. And some of these guys are multiple inning eaters too. So like if your pitchers only go 4 innings, and you got Miz that can go another 3 to get you to the seventh. So now then you're 7, 8, 9 with the back half of the bullpen that has been so electric. So advantage pitching, at least in the bullpen, to the Milwaukee Brewers because that bullpen is lights out, and it's one of the best bullpens in baseball. And I would really love to see Seattle and Milwaukee go head to head, just bullpens, because I think those are the two best bullpens remaining in baseball right now.
Yeah, I mean, even in the regular season, the Brewers bullpen good enough for third in the National League just by ERA. Um, they're just a good bullpen. I think that's a big strength, and I think that matters, right? I do think the Dodgers starting pitching is a tick better than the Brewers starting pitching. I think that feels fair when you go like guy for guy. I think like the combo of say, Snell and all the other guys like Yamamoto, that guys the Dodgers have, it feels like they're maybe a half step better than Milwaukee's guys that they're going to run out there, but the bullpen for Milwaukee is, I mean, far and away better. And you can cite Roki being pretty decent lately, but the it's not comparable in my opinion. The two bullpens that we're looking at here. One of them, it feels like if you get the Brewers a lead in like the seventh inning, the Brewers are going to win that game. The Dodgers, if you get them a lead, it's like a 50-50 proposition as to whether or not that goes smoothly or not.
Absolutely. And that's not a place you want to be in if you're the Dodgers, but that's a place you want to be in if you're the Milwaukee Brewers. So, yeah, you got to have a lockdown bullpen in a situation like this, in a postseason series like this, and Milwaukee's definitely got it.
Yeah, I guess so. We talked about Otani, the DH. We should talk about Yelich, the DH. Yelich has been, the face of the Brewers for a long time. So I'm really glad that he's getting another shot at a playoff run here. Um, he's been, Otani obviously is the better DH, but Yelich out of the DH position for them is no slouch. Like he's a more than capable designated hitter. I wonder, this is beyond just the series, but I do wonder how many more years of like starting Christian Yelich we have because it feels
Yeah.
like it's kind of starting to catch up with him a little bit, just like age, and there's been injuries baked in there as well. But I wonder how many realistic shots he has at a World Series.
Yeah, this feels like his last best shot and probably really only shot to go get one. And not to throw up to Brewers fans a sore subject, but in a way, this does kind of feel like Ryan Braun all over again, right? Like this. Weird to say. Obviously, Yelich wasn't your homegrown guy. He came over after Miami, but I mean, Yelich has had a good postseason series and hasn't really collected any RBIs or homers or anything, but has still gotten on base. Has been a guy that scored some runs and has the most plate appearances there in terms of where he is in the lineup and things like that. So he's still a leader of this organization, which I think they need. And so whether Christian Yelich falls off the face of the earth or not, like I think he's still a massive, valuable piece for this Milwaukee Brewers team as kind of that face or that lead to go into battle with those guys because it's a young crew. Like this team is young, but they're scrappy. They know how to play ball, and they play ball in a way that makes us kind of reminisce on, hey, go back to the mid 2000s. And again, like there's two teams left in the playoffs that are kind of changing the mold of how baseball should be played and going back in time a little bit. And the Milwaukee Brewers are one of them, and they're doing pretty well. But the question I do have with them though is they came out and boat raced Chicago in the first two games of that NLDS series, and then they let them get back into the series because they couldn't close them out. And that was more to do with the pitching department. And they had to burn through a lot of pitchers, and they didn't have a lot of pitchers in terms of starting caliber pitchers really on that roster. Peralta, it was pitched a lot and kind of got hit around a little bit. Quinn Priester got hit around a lot, and that's what got him back into the series. So the starting pitching should be okay on paper, but I think that is a question mark for Milwaukee, especially when you are facing the guys that you will have to face with the Los Angeles Dodgers and seeing how Snell and Yamamoto and heck, even Otani has been able to pitch. Can the offense for Milwaukee do enough to that really good Dodgers starting pitching? Or can we see this Milwaukee Brewers pitching from the starting pitching department step up and get it to those bullpen pieces that we've talked about that are so amazing?
Yeah, it's that is, I guess, the one question you have for Milwaukee is the starting pitching. Can it limit a Dodgers offense that we've kind of cited hasn't been incredible, but you feel like at any moment Otani could snap out of the 1 for 19 he just went on, and suddenly you have MVP Otani back, and then that's a problem if you're the Brewers, right?
Especially like with Milwaukee, it's like, okay, yeah, like if Freddie Peralta, who probably at this point would have to start game 3 because of the rest type thing, like maybe game 2 if you want to start him on short rest, like Peralta strikes out a ton of guys. Chad Patrick can go multiple innings, hasn't really been used that way in the postseason yet, but can. He strikes out a lot of guys. Nick Mears coming out of the bullpen, who could probably be an opener of some sort, strikes out a ton of guys. So you've got a lot of guys here that strike out a ton, and then you look towards the bottom half of what these guys have been able to do in the playoffs, and Jose Quintana's there, and we know Jose Quintana. Like he's a good pitcher, quality pitcher, can get the job done, eat up 4 or 5 innings, and give you solid play. And he's been okay in the postseason, or actually, I mean, he's been good in the postseason. Hasn't even given up a run in 3 innings, but he does not strike out the world. And because of that, that might be the pitcher that's where some of your like your Mookie Betts or your Teoscar Hernandez, those right-handed hitting power guys could maybe piece one and open up the series. Quinn Priester struggled if he'll be on the roster, so it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you've got guys that can strike people out. Is Mizorowski going to step in and maybe open and get 2 or 3 innings, or is he going to be your guy that just comes out of the bullpen for 2 or 3 later in the game with an opener? So the Brewers do have a lot of questions for who's going to start these games and how can you really compete in those first 3, 4, 5 innings of the game to then get it to the point where then you feel comfortable with you having the advantage of that bullpen and then getting that offense rolling, because that offense has been pretty good. William Contreras has been really big for them. So like they've got the offense, they've got the bullpen. Their huge question mark is like, is Freddie Peralta on short rest? Is Mizorowski on pretty much no rest? Like, is that going to be good enough to contend and get them to a World Series?
Yeah, let's talk about the lineup for a minute. You mentioned William Contreras was really good last series. I mean, he's, a 983 OPS is nothing to scoff at. He's, a top 3 Brewer hitter last series. Um, he's a difference maker behind the plate, man. He's one of the premier catchers in baseball. I don't think that's a stretch to say. The other guy you're looking at here is Jackson Churio was pretty good. He hit a homer last series. He's been good the whole year, and he's
Vaughn.
young, right? So you're looking
Yeah.
at maybe a lot of postseasons that Churio is here and doing this. The guy I want to talk about for a minute is Andrew Vaughn, because he has come over since the Aaron Savale trade. Remember when he was like, I don't want to go to the bullpen? And they were like, that's fine. We'll trade you to the White Sox, I guess. Andrew Vaughn was the return for that. And since he's been here, he's been kind of awesome. He's got an 869 OPS in 64 games with the Brewers coming into the postseason. He went 4 for 14 with a couple of bombs, last series. It's a difference maker that they got for basically nothing. And sorry, Aaron Savale, if you're hearing this, but like it's the return on investment there, what you thought you were going to get out of Vaughn versus what you're actually getting out of Vaughn is one of the biggest reasons the Brewers are here right now is they've added that bat to help replace the injured Rhys Hoskins. Remember him? He started as a first
Yeah.
baseman for the Brewers this year, and he has not played for a while due to injury. So what he was able to step in and do for them has been incredible, and I think that's one of the big reasons the Brewers are even in this situation right now.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. It's like Andrew Vaughn's not just hitting 2 homers and getting 4 RBIs in that postseason series, but he's walking at a 17.5% rate too. Like he's getting on base for the Jackson Churios, for the William Contrerases. And we've talked about in the past too, like this Milwaukee Brewers team doesn't hit the ball hard. They don't hit a ton of homers. And the only homers they really hit in the series was towards the end when they had the 3 solo shots to really eliminate the Cubs. So that's kind of where that some of those home runs came in bulk. And so the thing is, I mean, they're not living and dying by the home run ball like my Atlanta Braves have done for the past like 3 or 4 years. Like they're playing good baseball. They're hitting doubles. They're getting guys on base and slapping the ball around the field. They're guys that are running bases. They didn't necessarily have to run a ton of steal a ton of bases because like Frelick and Durbin only had one apiece in this last series, but they can scoot around the bases. Like they can take the extra base. Like that kind of stuff is how you win postseason series, and they're doing it. They're playing a good brand of baseball, and the offense is just kind of clicking at all cylinders. And just glancing at the stats from this last series, I mean, they had at least 6 or 7, without counting what I'm seeing in front of me. They had 6 or 7 guys with a walk percentage of over 10% just in that last postseason series. So they're getting a lot of guys on base. Averages are pretty high too, overall. So it's like this offense is getting people on base, and they're finding ways to get people home, and they're getting contributions from everyone in that lineup. And one of the guys that they weren't getting contributions for or from was Christian Yelich with no RBIs, but he still has a 263 batting average and has scored 4 runs. So you, you're getting lineup production from top to bottom, and then you still have Bryce Terang that wasn't performing well, but then had that big home run in the Chicago Cubs game 5 that helped them seal that. So this lineup 1 through 9 performing right now. They're really good ball players, and 1 through 9 it's a pretty formidable lineup to face.
Yeah, this will be the last thing we say, and then we'll do some predictions here. I think the Brewers lineup. We talked about it with Toronto. If you haven't seen that video, maybe go give that a watch after you're done here. But we talked about Toronto's offense, the runs they put up against the Yankees feels it feels like what they are versus like just a random flash in the pan. I think what the Brewers have been this whole series has been that. They don't hit a ton of homers, but they take the extra base, they run the bases pretty well. They don't necessarily barrel the ball super well analytically, but they get the ball in play and they are on base a ton. And
Yeah.
that kind of matters in the postseason. I think it just ramps up the pressure when you're able to turn those strikeouts into, say, you know, a 80-mile-an-hour ground ball up the middle that finds a hole. And suddenly you have a guy on first, and now you're stealing second, and you're making Will Smith or Ben Rortvedt make a throw and get you out at second, or otherwise you're just standing on second. Like, it feels like that's the Brewers' brand of baseball more than trying to just hit bombs all over the place. And I think Brewers fans would agree with me there. And because that's been the brand the whole season, it feels like they're just going to be able to continue to do that through the postseason, or at least they'll have a much better shot than other teams at trying to accomplish that.
Absolutely, and that's where even though they may not be stealing a ton of bases, the speed that they have in general, just putting the ball in play, beating the throw out to first, taking the extra base on a ground ball single, going first to third, or maybe even first to home, things like that. Like that type of stuff is going to place a lot of pressure on the really good starting pitchers for the Dodgers when inevitably they make a mistake and walk a guy, or when they give up like a sightseeing single type thing. So the thing is, like, the more pressure you put on the Dodgers, the more likely you've been able to see, just with what we've seen all year, like the pressure might burst the pipes. So I think this is the perfect team to expose the Dodgers, just because of the brand of baseball that they play. So I think it's going to be an exciting series. It's just, again, going back to that big question: can the starting pitching give you enough to where all this other stuff will go play in your favor? Because I think everything else plays in the Brewers' favor right now. It's just, can they get enough pressure, get enough base runners, get enough scored runs on their good pitching to where then they can maybe blow a game wide open and have the Dodgers continue make some mistakes to where then they can just take full advantage.
Yeah. Justin, I just want you to know you are always making my pipes burst, buddy. I just I just want to put that out there on the internet for everybody to see. Let's do some predictions here. We'll do it the same way. NLCS, who's winning how many games, and who's your MVP?
Right, so the Milwaukee Brewers eliminated my National League pick in the Chicago Cubs, and the Los Angeles Dodgers are over here as everybody's dominant favorite. Just kidding, we hate them all. So with that being said, I'm going to go Milwaukee Brewers in 6 games. Your NLCS MVP is going to be Jackson Churio. I think he's going to steal a couple bags. I think he'll hit a home run or two in this series in some big spots, and will reintroduce himself to the baseball world as not just the top prospect that's panning out, but like the top prospect that is a star in baseball. So give me Jackson Churio, give me Brewers in 6. I think they put enough pressure on the Dodgers pipes to make it burst. Yeah, so give me Brewers in 6.
I'm gonna go Brewers in 7. Um, I just there's too many questions on the Dodgers roster for me to pick them. Uh, and I think my MVP, I'm going to go with Andrew Vaughn. This feels a lot like if you remember all the way back to 2018, the Steve Pearce postseason with Boston and their World Series run. That's kind of what feels like is happening here, where you're going to be like, Steven Pierce did what in the Boston run? That's what it feels like is going to happen with Andrew Vaughn in the Milwaukee run. You're going to be like, I didn't even remember Andrew Vaughn was a Brewer in like 5 years. Um, I don't know. I think I like Milwaukee's team as a whole better. Obviously, the top end of the Dodgers when they're clicking. Like Otani, when on, is the best player in the series, but he hasn't been on. Mookie Betts is really good, but can him and Teoscar out hit the rest of the Brewers? I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Especially not with all the pitching questions. So I'm going to go Brewers in 7. I do think it's going to be an interesting series. I do think that the Dodgers have enough offense to make this a long series. I don't see a world where this is a short series for either team. I don't think this is going less than like 6 games. But I don't know. I just as a whole, I think I like the Dodger or excuse me, the Brewers entire roster better than I like the Dodgers roster. There's just less questions. But I guess let us know, who is your NLCS pick? How many games? Who's winning MVP? Call your shot. Who's hitting the first home run of the series? Also, throw that in the comment section below. And I think that's all we got for you, pretty much.
Yeah, go throw in for the player to end this episode, since we always do that. Throw in the hashtag Get Yelich the ring or Get Yelich a ring. That'll be your player to comment as you like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification for more baseball adjacent news and content and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch y'all in the next one. Take it easy.